Welcome to Fast Track Gains. I'm here to help you accelerate your gains. This is the first episode of my fifth series, Fat Loss. Now, you may be wondering if this chubby dude is really qualified to provide any fat loss advice at all. But trust me, I have been in a very lean state for quite a period of time when I first started my training. The photo you saw on the thumbnail, it was me back in February 2022. 5 months into training, and as you can see, I was definitely under 10% body fat, and I remained at around about 10% body fat until December 2022. And let me tell you, before I started my training in August 2021, I was at 25% body fat, and even earlier than that, I was constantly at 35% body fat for the majority of my life. So I do think when it comes to the topic of fat loss, I'm indeed qualified to provide some sound guidance. Right now, the reason for me being a bit chubby is because I'm more interested in growing muscle than losing body fat as an advanced hypertrophy trainee, because building muscle is much more difficult than losing body fat. However, as maintaining a reasonable body fat percentage is still generally considered as part of a whole desirable physique package, fat loss, no matter how easy it is, will always retain its seat in the discussion of muscle growth. And on the population level, the preference of fat loss over muscle growth is just too prevalent. The best example, just look at the accumulated views of 2 different episodes of Dr. Andy Galpin guest series on Andrew Huberman's YouTube channel. The fat loss episode has 5.3 million views, which is more than 3.5 times of the views on muscle growth episodes. Heck, even when I first started my fitness journey, fat loss was definitely right at the center of my transformation goal, even more so than muscle growth. So there's no doubt that on the population level, fat loss is the most universal goal that people want to achieve. And while the principles of fat loss are fairly simple and straightforward, the terminology, the daily application, and the extended topics behind fat loss can be fairly deep and complex, and it can create a lot of confusion to a lot of people. And that is why in this fat loss series, I will be covering all aspects of fat loss and try to give you a complete 360-degree view of the whole picture. And we will start from the most boring principles, and then to the nitty-gritty terminology, and then to detailed daily application, and then finally end up with the most interesting extended topics. But before I start talking about the most boring principles, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. Takes less than a second, costs you nothing, and will help me a great deal in delivering the most efficient muscle building knowledge to the whole world. Really appreciate your support. Now, back to my video. How many boring fat loss principles are there exactly? Principle number 1, the laws of thermodynamics. It is absolutely worth mentioning the most obvious thing at the very beginning. The success of fat loss has nothing to do with any particular diet, whether it is keto, low carb, vegan, carnivore, paleo, Mediterranean, or even intermittent fasting. Fat loss is entirely based on the laws of thermodynamics. In order to lose body fat, you have to consume less calories than you spend. I have to mention this particular principle because nowadays there are just too many experts trying to confuse you with their own buzzwords like carbohydrate insulin model, or carbs or fruits that make you fat because they spike your insulin, or fats don't make you fat because they don't spike your insulin. And as I've mentioned in my previous episode, Hacking into the Ultimate Hypertrophy Code, Early Intermediate, it is so easy to fall into this nutrition limbo rather than focusing on the most basic principle: calories in, calories out. Stop subscribing to any particular diet or any fancy biochemical pathways and start learning how to count your calories, and you will greatly simplify your fat loss journey. I cannot emphasize the importance of this principle enough. Just like Simpson said in the cartoon, in this house, we obey the laws of thermodynamics.
In this house, we obey the laws of thermodynamics.
Principle number 2, the law of satiety. If the law of thermodynamics is the most important physical principle for fat loss, then the law of satiety is the most important physiological principle that you must follow for fat loss. We human beings are not machines, and although calories in, calories out is the foundation of fat loss, we also have to factor in the influence of satiety into the equation. The law of satiety in essence means if you are hungry, you want to eat. If you are full, you do not want to eat. When you are satiated, regardless of if you have eaten enough calories, you will stop eating. And if you are satiated all the time, then you can pretty much go all the day without eating any food and lose all the weight you want. And that is pretty much the mechanism of the most potent weight loss drug, Ozempic. Ozempic has helped millions of people lose substantial amount of body weight, and that's the power of the law of satiety. On the opposite, hunger is the number one killer for any long-term fat loss success, because when you feel hungry, regardless of if you have eaten enough calories, you will want to eat, and that is human nature. And you may be able to starve yourself for a period of time, but you can never starve yourself for the rest of your life. That's the reason why crash diet fails every time, because you can never win against human nature. Principle number 3, calories in, calories out is a dynamic equilibrium. While it is important to acknowledge that fat loss is entirely based on the laws of thermodynamics, it is equally important to realize that calories in, calories out is not an equation set in stone. Example, let us assume that I weigh 80 kilos and my daily energy expenditure is 3,000 calories, and I create, say, a 500 daily caloric deficit by only consuming 2,500 calories. So, in theory, I should be able to lose 0.45 kilos or a pound of body fat in a week. However, if calories in, calories out is a set equation and I follow this caloric deficit, then in 160 weeks, or roughly about 3 years, I will shrink myself to nothing. And is that correct? Of course not. It is pure nonsense, but that is exactly my point. Calories in, calories out is a dynamic equilibrium. There can be so many factors influencing the calories in part, and there can be even more factors influencing the calories out part. Both parts are constantly changing based on your daily life. That is why any fat loss program has to be adjusted accordingly every now and then to reflect your daily life changes. Principle number 4, slow and steady will always beat fast and furious. Don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of Fast and Furious movie series. But when it comes to fat loss, you want to do exactly the opposite. Maybe you're familiar with the boiling the frog method. If a frog is put suddenly into boiling water, it will jump out of survival instinct. But if the frog is put in tepid water first, which is then brought to the boiling point slowly, then the frog will not perceive the danger and it will be cooked slowly to death. To a larger extent, our body is very much like the frog. If you go on a starvation diet and doing hours and hours of cardio trying to lose huge amount of body weight in a short period of time, you will instantly trigger the body's survival instinct by drastically reducing your daily energy expenditure and trying to gain the weight back with any opportunity being presented. Very much like the frog will jump out of boiling water immediately out of its own survival instinct. One of the best examples of Fast and Furious fat loss, why not read what happened to the Biggest Loser TV show participants? All of them gained their weight back and some, and that is truly a tragedy. Conversely, If you gradually decrease your caloric intake or increase your caloric expenditure, you will send a signal to the body that nothing is in danger, everything is fine. Only small changes are taking place, and it is safe to do so and to lose some body fat. Very much like the frog, we're enjoying the water being gradually heated up. Fortunately, human body is much more intelligent than frog. Our body will not allow us to starve to death, unlike the frog being boiled alive. Nevertheless, a fat loss plan that is slow and steady will always beat the one that is fast and furious. Okay, a quick summary. As I said at the very beginning, principles are simple and straightforward, and even downright stupid. However, simple as they may be, they're also the most important, and too many people try to outsmart these principles, and that's probably the biggest reason why, although fat loss is simple, the majority of people would still fail at long-term fat loss success. If you don't abide by the principles, you will not succeed. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next episode. Peace out.